difficult.
Yes.
شاءالله اینجا هم جمع شد. آره.
How are you? Good, thank you. Morning. So much.
How are you? Looking forward to your haftarah. Shabbat shalom. How are you? Baruch Hashem. And you? Good, good. Okay. Meshane makom, meshane mazal.
How is the side with this side?
The other side is being fixed.
what's
The
that on?
new air condition. The whole new air conditioned unit, the whole thing. It cost $100,000 from what I hear.
Who's it?
کچکش بعدن امروز
دنبال ببینم یه خبرهایی هست. چیه؟ درست. جدیده از کجا بگیره؟ این دوازده این مال این سربازات یک شبه رو ولی هست تجارت سینارست کردن.
Coming to you. Mention that you want. Oh, here. Good. 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 Good.
چه خبر؟
نفس در نفس ندارم راه رفتم پدرم 4 تا قدم آمدم
Correct. So we should.
We should tough it out. Like
Yeah,
that.
that's what we have to tough it out.
You should go in the parking lot and do this. There's some you can turn those upside down and use them to grow tomato plants.
Sorry?
You can turn them upside down and use them to grow tomato plants in the summer.
That was like a right idea. Maybe we'll do that.
Michael,
Hey, Morgan.
how are you today?
Good.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. How are you? Good?
It's too close over here. That's better.
It's a little cold.
Yeah, a little better. Techa Yisrael, Va'ani Berocha Secho, Ochot Ve'techa, Eholchal Kochecho, Be'yirotecha, Adonai Ohavti Miyom Be'techa, Makom Mishkein Kvodecha, Va'ani Eshkacha Ve'echa, Evrecha, Lifnei Adonai Osi, Ani Tefilati Lecha Adonai, Etzratzon, Elohim Erasecha, Aneni B'emes Yishecha, Aneni B'emes Yishecha. Please rise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher nosa l'sach v'ivinu l'hakmi ben yom u'ben layla. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam asher tzani b'tzamo. Baruch atah melech haolam asher osani Yisrael. Baruch atah melech haolam asher osani ben Chorim. Baruch atah melech haolam pokei akivrim. Baruch atah melech haolam al bisharumim. Baruch atah melech haolam atei asurim. Baruch atah melech haolam zokei kifufim. Baruch atah melech haolam roka ha'oretz ha'hamayim. Baruch atah melech haolam shelto lichot tzaki. Baruch atah melech haolam meichim mitzadei goveh. Baruch atah melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah melech haolam otel Yisrael b'tifora. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam notel yo'ev koach. Utenenu hayom chom yom lecheser rachamim v'nechem v'nekroreinu v'skleinu chasdim tovim baruch atah Adonai gomer chasdim tovim l'amo Yisrael. Ashreinu ma'tov chalkeinu, ma'noim goleinu ma'yifo Yerushalayinu, Ashreinu she'anachnu mashkim ma'rivim ever v'rokeh v'omrim pamayim b'chol yom. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Kadesh Shemcha Amidei Shemecha, Kadesh Shemcha Ba'olamecha, V'shachcha Torim Tabi HaKarenu, Baruch atah Adonai, V'kadesh Shemcha Barabi. Page 70. Rabbi Ishmael. Yehira Tameh Fenech Anai Hayom Seino Shin Bornas Beis Hamidas B'Ravir Min of Techa Kera B'Torah Techa V'Sham Naftacha B'Yakim Me'olom Shoni Kadmonios. Kaddish the Rabbanan, page 71. Yiskarav, Yiskarash, Shemei Rabban, V'Yamad Divrach V'Tei, V'Yimlich Makutei, V'Chayechom, Yomechom, V'Chayeh D'Chol Beis Yisrael, V'Agolor Zman Kari V'Yimru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabban V'Barach Le'olam V'Mei Mayor. Yisbarach, V'Yiskabach, V'Yisparav, Yisromam, V'Yisnaseh, V'Yishadav, V'Yisalev, V'Yishalal, Shemei D'Kusha, V'Rechot. Le'elor Mikol V'Chotav V'Shiratav
Tush bechata v'nechamata, damiram v'yamar v'yamru, amen. Al Yisrael v'yal Rabbanim v'yal Tamidei Hom, v'yal Kol Tamidei Hom, v'yal Kol Mod Yosiki Baraita, Di Barakra Hadei Di B'chor Taviyata. Yehen Lahon L'chon Shlomo Rabba, Chida v'chista Rachamim, v'chayim harichim v'zono v'vikah, u'kanam v'kadam avaham v'shamaya v'yamru, amen. Yehen Shlomo Rabba v'shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yamru, amen. Osei Shalom v'mamam, u'rachamav yasei Shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yamru, amen. Page 72, Song for Shabbat. Hayom Yom Shabbat Shkodesh. Good Hashem.
I usually used to put that's one of the how they did the layout to this.
Oh, the Honorable B'Seva, the Shady Ranani Yeyu, Agiki Yushanoi Tsuri, below Avlo Tobo. Page 81.
Page 81, or is that? It's on 30.
Ms. Sheikh Hanukkah Sabaya Sadavi, you'll get one song this afternoon. Afata misvodim lakamali, v'tati saki v'tazveni simcha, v'mayz v'chakav v'lo Adonai Alahai lilam aldecha.
Mourner's Kaddish on page 82.
Yizkarav, Yizkarav, Shemei Rabbo.
Amen.
V'yamad divrach v'ritei v'amelech machotei, v'chayechol v'yomechol v'chayei d'chol beis Yisrael. V'adolo v'zman kariv v'yamru. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbo l'vorach le'olam l'mei amaya. Yizbarach v'yishtabach v'yizpa'av v'yizvomam v'yiznaseh. V'yishadav v'yisaleh v'yisalal Shemei t'kusha b'rechu. Le'elor min kol b'chata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, damiram v'yamar v'yamru, amen. Yehen Shlomo Rabba min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yamru, amen. Osei Shalom v'mamam, hu yasei Shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yamru, amen.
Amen. We all stand on 83 for Baruch Shema.
Baruch Shema v'ayah halam Baruch Hu, Baruch Osei Bereshit, Baruch Omer v'yoseh, Baruch Osei Chaim, Baruch Merchem Ha'aretz, Baruch Merchem Ha'ariyah, Baruch Meshalei Socha Tov L'Riyah, Baruch Hayat B'chayim Ha'netzach, Baruch Podel Masil, Baruch Shema'o, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Ha'olam, Ha'el Ha'av Ha'rachamon Ha'mlo B'fir Amo, Mishabar B'for B'lishon Chesed V'Avodah, U'shrei David Avdech Adonai Eloheinu, Yishvachos and Yishmorot, the Kedelchon, Nachbechachon, Nachbe'erechon, and Nachkirshachon, Nachlechachon, Akeno Leheinu, Yachid Hei Holamim, Melech, Mishabach, Vav, Ye'al Shemo HaKadosh, Baruch Atah Adonai, Melech Olav, Atishvacho.
Page 84, may be seated.
Hold on, Adonai. Ki Goron I Mahal Beno, Beno Polihi, Ki Kola He Hami, Ali Beno Shemayim Osa.
Return now to page 96 for Ashray.
Asher Shmei Betas, O Yodu Tosno.
Hashem Shekapelo, Shem Shenelocha, Tilavalavi.
P. Baruch B'Sol Shem Kochi Olam forever. Nachnu V'Chiyom El Tavadi Olam. Hallelujah. 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 She said, Adonai Matia Surim, Adonai Pokei Akivrim, Adonai Sokei Kufufim, Adonai Yohev Sadikim, Adonai Shemes Gerim, Yotov Amano Yodev, Derek Shamik Yaveh, Ilam Kalam Hai Sin Ladovado, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kitazamu Alaheinu.
Page 98.
Ma'gid Rav Yaakov Ukov Mishpatol Yisrael Lo L'Seim L'Chogosh Patim Yabal Yadum hallelujah. Hallelujah. L'Sadam Yishamayim. Hallelujah. Yahalu Hashem Anointing this Goshem Olavado Holdo Al Eretz Vashemayim Yom Kemerli Amol Tilo Chasidov L'Neisam Karovo hallelujah. L'Somechem Bezikim Ketiv Chavi Vasel Asat Bohem Mishpach Kosu Hodol Locho Chasidov hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Pokacho. Hallelujah, Sister Shema, hallelujah, Titile to Kohacham Tolio, hallelujah, Kohacham Tolio, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Elohim, Hey Yisrael, Sein and Fossil Levado, Rock Chain, Kibadol Elon, Magnola Kibadol, Eskoharet, Amen, be Amen.
We stand together now on page 101 and recite the top paragraph together in Hebrew.
Vayvarech David es Adonai l'nei kol ha'kahal emet David. Baruch atah Adonai l'hei Yisrael l'kinim yalom ya'avalom. L'cha Adonai ha'gdula v'ha'gvura v'tiferet v'hanetzach v'yahod. Hikol b'shamayim u'varetz. L'cha Adonai ha'molcha v'mitzaseh l'chol rosh. V'hoshev v'kavod mifavnecha v'yatom Moshe b'kol. V'yircha kol v'ruah v'yircha l'gdel chasek l'kol. V'yatrol Elohim Elohim Abdim Abdullah Elohim Hashem Tifatecha. Tohu Adonai Elohim Hashem B'chatam B'Avram V'tzitzim V'kasdim V'sato Shema Avraham Es B'sot Es Lavon Emor Lefanecha V'charos Imos V'Yisas Eretz HaKanani Ha'Pitim V'Yisas V'hayom chadel lefneihem, v'vuf v'sok hayom b'yavoshos, from him chatot tzelos kamol emen b'mayim azim. V'yishad Adonai b'yom ha'hu. V'ya Yisrael asiyot adolo, asher sanom mitzvayim, v'yum hasanoi mimino b'Adonai Moshe avdo. Asher b'Moshe b'nei Yisrael. Adonai L'Kli Lam V'Adonai L'Kli Lam V'Ed V'Adonai L'Chol Moshe B'Goyim V'Lu Moshe Pa'as Siyon L'Shkol Es HaHesor V'Hos Alanom L'Chol V'Haram L'Charetz B'Yom HaHu Yinor L'Chol Shmo Echad V'Shma Tochai Tibrei Hashem V'Alaheinu.
May be seated on 104.
וכי נשי אסנוי וחוק רבי אשן קודשו הויה בת סוסך הגדול כבוד שמך הגבול ומת ספר נוע בנורתך המלך היושב על כיסו וניסו.
Yasher Koach to Norman Zagorski for Sukkot Zemra, as Chazan Barnoi takes over now on 105 with Shulchan Ad.
שוכן על מרומי וקדוש שמו.
Maro Nekadosh Shemo.
בפי ישרים נתהלה ובברית צדיקים יברך ובלשון חסדי תתרומם ובקרב קדושים תתקדש ובמקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל. שכן חובת כל היצורים לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו להודות להלל לשבח לפאר לרחם להדר לברך להלל ולקדש עלי כל דברי שירות ולשבחות עלי כל דברי שירות ולשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך ישתבח שמך ברכות ויודעות מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני אל המלך גדול ותשבחות אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות הבוחר בשירי זמרה מלך העולמים יגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה יאמר יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון ובימכון וחיי דכו בישראל בעגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן יש רב מבורך ליעלו וישתבח ויתפר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמלכות שבריחו לעילם יגברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה תמירנה בעלמה ברכו את אדוני המבורך ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
We're seated on 107.
הרכך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה ויהיה זולתך מלכנו לחיי עולם הבא הבט ביתך בו עלינו לימות המשיח ונדום לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים אל אדון על כל המעשים ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה Retsson kona בכבוד נותנים לשמו צלב ורינה לזכר מלכותו קרא השמש ויזרחור והתקין צורת הלבנה שבח נותנים לו כל צבע מרום תפארת וגדולה שרפים ויופנים וחיות הקודש שבח נותנים לו כל צבע מרום תפארת וגדולה שרפים ויופנים וחיות הקודש.
Page 109.
כולם אוהבים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים וכולם עושים במעביר הרצון קונם וכולם פותחים את פיהם קדושת תורה ושירה וזמרה ומברכים ומשבחים ומפארים ומריצים ומקדישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול והנורא הקדוש וכל המקבים עליהם ומלכות שמיים זה מזה ונותנים רשות זה לזה להקדיש לעצם ונחת רוח בשפה ברורה ורימה קדושה כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלך כל הארץ יולדות ויופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנסים לעומת צרפים לעומתם משבחים ואומרים ברוך אדוני אורך חדש על ציון תאים נזכה כולנו מהרה ליורו ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות ויהינו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ ותורכנו כממיות לארצנו כי אל פועל ישורתה ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון קרבתנו לשמך הגדול לסלע באמת להודותך ולאחדך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני Adonai Elohechem.
Bottom half of 113.
לדור ודור קיים ושמו קיים וניסו נכון ומלכתו ואמונתו לעד קיימת. אמן שאתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו מלכנו מלך אבותינו גואלנו גואל אבותינו יוצרנו צור ישועתנו כבודנו מצילנו מעולם שמך אין אלוהים זולתך עזרת נפשנו אתה ובעם.
Page 114.
תהילות אל עליון ברכו מבורך משה ובני ישראל לך נושיע בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף שירה חדשה שבחו גאולים לשמך שפתיה יחד כולם הודו וימלכו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד צור ישראל כלומר עזרת ישראל לא דהין עמך יהודה וישראל גואלנו אברהם יזרעו שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אדוני גאל ישראל.
We take a few minutes to daven the Amidah for Shachari quietly to ourselves, 115 to 120. Page 115b as we begin our communal repetition.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסר מיתון וכהנה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ומביא גוי לבני בניהם למען שמו ביהבה. מלך עוזר ופוקר מושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. הגיבור לעולם אדוני מחיים את מטרה להושיע, משיב הרוח מוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיים מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מלחמוך הגבורות ומדום מלך, מלך מליך ומחיה ומצליח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה המתים. נקדש את שמך, את שמך בעולם, כשם שמרגישים אותו בשמי מרום. ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה לזה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, כל הארץ כבודו. אז בכל רשתו לדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, אז בכל רשתו אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנסים ליום הצרפים, ליומתם ברוך יאמרו, מתנסים ליום הצרפים, ליומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים, בעינינו תראנה מלכותך, כתב המור בשירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיחתי לקח, ימלוך אדוני בעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד לך ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש בשמך אלוהינו, יפנו לימוש לעולם ועד. כי מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Be seated.
ישמח משה במתנת חלקו כי עבד נאמן קראת לו כלים תפארת בראשו נתת ביומדו לפניך על הר סיני ושלוחות אבנים מוריד בידו וכתוב בהן שמירת שבת וכן כתוב בתורתך ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת וינפש ולא נתתו אדוני אלוהינו גויי הארצות ולא ילכה כמלכנו לעבדי פלסטינים וגם לא חטא לישכנו הרעלים כי לישראל עמך נתתו באהבה לזרע יעקב אשר בם בחרת המקדש שמי ולמזבח ותענגו מטובך והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו חמדת ימים אותו קראת זכר למעשה בראשית אלוהינו ולאבותינו נצא מנוחתנו קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך סבנו מטובך ושמחנו בשובתך וטהר ליבנו לעבדך לעבדך באמת וטהר ליבנו לעבדך לעבדך באמת והקהילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך ואנו חובה ישראל מקדש שמך ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת רצה אדוני אלוהינו בימיך ישראל ותפילתם וישב את עבודה לדביר ביתך ותפילתם יפה תקבל ברצון ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון מודים אנחנו צור חיינו מגן אישנו אתה הוא לדור ודור צור חיינו מגן אישנו אתה הוא לדור ודור נודה לך ונספר תהילתך על חיינו המסורים בידיך ויעני שמותינו הפקודות לך ויעניסך שבכל יום שבכל יום עמנו צור חיינו מגן אישנו אתה הוא לדור ודור צור חיינו מגן אישנו אתה הוא לדור ודור ויעל נפלותיך וטובותיך שבכל עת ערב ובוקר וצהריים הטוב כי לא חנו רחמך והמרחם כי לא תמו חסדיך מעולם מעולם קיווינו לך ויעל כל המתברך ויתרום שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד וכל החיים יוחסה לה ויעללו את שמך באמת העלה שמועתנו בעזרתנו סלע ברוך אתה אדוני הטוב שמך ולך נהל להודות אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו וברכנו ברכה משולשת בתורה הכתובה לנו משה עבדך המורה מפי אהרון רבנה וכהנים עם קדושך כאמור יברך
יברכך אדוני וישמרך. יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונקה. יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום. שים שלום וטובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עמך עמך שים שלום וטובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עמך בורכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד ביור פניך, כי ביור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו תורת חיים ואהבת חסד ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום ושלום. שים שלום טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עמך עמך שים שלום וטובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עמך וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה. בשלומך שים שלום שים שלום וטובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עמך ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
On page 138.
יגדל ויקדש שם ברכה, ויאמר יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובמכון ובחייתך בית ישראל, בגדה בזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יש רבה מבורך, ויאדם ויאמר והיה, יתברך, יברא וישתבח וירפא ויתרומה ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתהלך ויתהלך, שם ידי קודשיו רכו, לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, ברכתה ונחמתה, תמירה וירמה ויאמרו אמן. קבל צרות ולבאות כל ישראל, קדם אבו נביא שמעיה ויאמרו אמן. איש נאמר ומשמעיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן.
139.
אין כמוך באלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך כמעשיך. מלכותך מלכות, מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז עוז לימו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. הרחמים היטיבה ברצונך את ציון, לבני חומות ירושלים, כי בך נאמתנו, ולחרם ונישא הטובים.
as servants of the Holy One, whom we revere, and whose Torah we revere at all times. Not on mortals do we rely, nor upon angels do we depend, but upon the God of the universe, the God of truth, whose Torah is truth, whose prophets are truth, and who abounds in deeds of goodness and truth. In God we put our trust, under God's holy, precious being we utter praise. Open our hearts to your Torah, answer our prayers and the prayers of all your people in Israel for goodness, for life, and for peace. And together we say, Amen. Shalom. It's good to be together on this quiet Roslyn Shabbat. I didn't quite see tumbleweeds going down Round Hill Road, but it did feel a little eerily quiet. And but it's good to be here together. And just as a heads up, in case you are not yet aware, that our services this morning are being streamed through our service, new service, which, and the camera's right up there and to the right. It takes in kind of the central area, both the reader's table and Davener's Stender. So just, know that when you're up here, you're on camera. Know that anything you say near a microphone is also being recorded and sent out, right? Just things to be aware of when we come into a different space, and it has not been our custom to do so in the recent past. It's very good that now all of our services, every one of them, will be, well, I should say this, every one of them that's done inside of our building, either in the chapel or the sanctuary, will be available on the computer for people who cannot be here. So on Shabbat and holidays, it will be streamed, and on weekdays, we'll continue to use the Zoom. But that means even like Mincha Ma'ariv this afternoon will be streamed on our service and through the website and through YouTube. So that expands the opportunities to connect if you're not able to be here in person. And as we turn to our portion, Parsha Vayigash, we see in the beginning a culmination of events that have been working their way through this family and through history for decades. Right? This isn't like something happens and then 6 months later they figure out how it's all going to get better. This is the culmination of when we met Yosef, and he gave us those dreams to his father and to his brothers about everyone bowing down to him, and then his brothers nearly murdering him, telling their father that he was dead, but selling him instead into slavery in Egypt, right? And now, at the beginning of our parsha, we get this big reveal, this big reunification of the family. And as we read and we study and we look at this event, I think it's an opportunity to reflect on human nature and family systems, how we function, the decisions we make, and in particular, the goals we have for ourselves and for our families, and how those sometimes maybe need to adjust as the reality on the ground changes. Right? If we look at Jacob, was Jacob the guy who really was bereft over the loss of Joseph and showed such favoritism to Benjamin that that's the only one he really cared about? And for Jacob, to be able to get Joseph and Benjamin together and back was wonderful? Or for Jacob, is it really that they're part of the whole, and all of the brothers are important? We can read the Torah in any number of ways, right? And for Joseph, what is it Joseph wants? Does he want his revenge, but he gives up on it, somehow persuaded by being in person with his brothers? Does he somehow soften, but he really wanted revenge? Or is it that he's looking for a sign that his brothers are different, that they've changed? Which is another way to read the Torah, maybe the most conventional. And what about Judah? What's Judah's goal? What is he trying to do? Why does he step forward in this way? In a powerful way, very powerful way. Did he grow into that? Is that an inspiration of the moment? Or is he completing a mission that he saw himself on if he had the opportunity? Right? So all of these are options. They're all different ways that we can look at the Parsha and engage with it. It's always good to bring a different lens, because we come from different places each year as we come back to this story. Right? So we're going to begin, though, we kind of advance right with page 278 in our Chumash. Can you go see if she's Page 278, chapter 45 of Bereshit, verses 19 through 27. Everyone there has a red Chumash and Eitz Chaim. Page 278, chapter 45, verses 19 through 27.
ויושיע לכל החסים בו ונאמר אמן. הכל עבור לאלוהינו, תנו כבוד לתורה, תעמוד פנינה בת שרה ומשה ראשון, ברוך שנותן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו, ואתם הביטים באדוני אלוהיכם, חיים כולכם היום.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
ועתה צווי כזאת עשו כולכם מארץ מצרים עגלות לטפכם ולנשיכם ונשאתם את אביכם ובאתם ועיניכם אל תחוס על כליכם כי טוב כל ארץ מצרים לכם הוא ויעשוכם בני ישראל ויתן להם יוסף עגלות על פי פרעה ויתן להם צידה לדרך לכולם נתן לאיש חליפות שמלות ולבנימין נתן 300 כסף ו5 חליפות שמלות ולאביו שלח כזאת 10 חמורים נשואים מטוב מצרים ו10 אתונות נושאות בהר ולחם ומזון לאביו לדרך וישלח את אחיו וילכו ויאמר עליהם אל תרכזו בדרך ויעלו ממצרים ויבואו ארץ כנען אל יעקב אביהם ויגידו לו לאמור עוד יוסף חי וכי הוא מושל בכל ארץ מצרים ויפוג ליבו כי לא האמין להם וידברו אליו את כל דברי יוסף אשר דיבר עליהם וירא את העגלות אשר שלח יוסף לשאת אותו ותחי רוח יעקב אביהם.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. יעמוד נחמן בן שמוע הלוי שני. We're on page 279, pasuk 28.
And because we have a soldier with us, we're going to offer Misha Berach on behalf of Tzahal. So a prayer on behalf of our soldiers who are fighting and defending the state of Israel, all her citizens, and of course the Jewish people. Yehi Shabbat Avotenu Abraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov v'yivarech et chayalei tzavah Yisrael v'anshe kochot habitachon העומדים על משמר ארצנו וירא אלוהינו מגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים ומן הים הגדול עד לבוא הערבה ובכל מקום שהם ביבשה, באוויר ובים ייתן אדוני את אויבינו חכמים עלינו ניגדים לפניהם. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה ומצוקה, מכל נגע ומחלה, וישלח ברכה וצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם. ידבר שונאינו תחתיהם, ויעדיפם בספר ישועה ובעטר ניצחון, ויקוים בהם הכתוב, כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם להילחם לכם, עם אויביכם להושיע אתכם מן המהר. אמן.
We switch. Who's the next advert? Who's the next advert? Sorry.
Baruch Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol mivnot lanu es torah Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emes v'chayim alanu b'socheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Moshe Chaim, then you said Omishi, you're on top of page 281.
מערכות אדוני המאורח, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
I need a sword.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו את תורתו תורת אמת וחיי העולם נעשה בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
יעמוד מאיר בן יעקב שליש רביעי.
אדוני עמכם. רבנו ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
The Torah reading continues on top of page 283.
לימד תורתנו הקדושה, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נעשה בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
יעמוד אשר בן דוד חמישי. The Torah reading continues on page 284. We are at the chapter 47.
Amen. Vayavo Yosef, vayagel lekaro, vayomer, aviva afai, bitonam v'karam v'kol asher lahem, ba'u me'eretz Canaan, ve'hinam be'eretz Goshen, u'mitei ha'kav l'kav chamisha anashim, vayatiyem livnei Paro. Vayomer Paro el Epav ma'asechem, vayimru el Paro, roitzon avadecha gam anachnu gam avotenu, vayimru el Paro, lagur ba'aretz banu, ki ein mir'eh, latzon asher lavadecha, ki kaved hara'a be'eretz Canaan, V'yata yishvena avadecha be'eretz Goshen. Vayomer Paro el Yosef lemor, avika ba'avecha ba'u elecha, eretz Mitzrayim lefanecha hi, v'meitav haaretz yoshevet avika v'yet harfecha, yeshvu be'eretz Goshen, v'im yadata, v'yesh bam, anshei chayil v'samtam sarei mikneh, al asher li. Vayaveh Yosef et Yaakov aviv, vayamideu lifnei Paro, vayavarech Yaakov et Paro. Vayomer Paro el Yaakov kama, yemei shnei chayecha. Vayomer Yaakov el Paro, yemei shnei migurai, shloshim me'at shana, me'at beraim. Hayu yemei shnei chayai velo hisimu, et yemei shnei chayei avotai v'yemei migureihem. Vayivarech Yaakov et Paro, vayitzei milifnei Paro.
Talmud. In the back of the Yitzchak Shishi. Baruch.
Amen.
Amen. Vayashem Yosef et Aviv, Yadakal. Vayiten lahem achuzah, be'eretz Mitzrayim b'meitav ha'aretz, be'eretz Ramses, ka'asher tiva Paro, vayikalkel Yosef, et Aviv et Echav, v'et kol beit Aviv, lachem lefi hakav, ve'lachem en, v'kol ha'aretz ki kaved ha'arav me'od, latela eretz Mitzrayim v'eretz Canaan v'pnei ha'arav, v'yilakeh Yosef, et kol ha'kesef, hanimtza b'eretz Mitzrayim u'be'eretz Canaan, v'ashever asher et shomrim, Vayaveh Yosef et hakesef beit ha'paro, vayitol hakesef me'eretz Mitzrayim u'me'eretz Canaan, vayavohu kol Mitzrayim el Yosef lemor, havalanu lechem v'lama namud negdecha ki apes kasef. Vayomer Yosef, havu miknechem et na'lechem v'miknechem imapes kasef. Vayaviu et miknechem el Yosef, vayitein lahem Yosef lechem basusim, uv'miknech atzon, uv'miknech ha'bakar v'bakamorim, vayinahalem b'lechem b'chol miknechem, Bashana
We will now pause in our reading to offer a Mishberach before leaving. Prayer for those who need healing. So, if you are praying on behalf of someone's health, ask that you stand in your place, and then when I pause towards the beginning of the prayer, please share that name out loud so that we can all join in your prayer together. Yananai, 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 Mishavera Avotenu Ve'imotenu V'yirafenu Shemayim. Welcome to Nefesh Ruach HaGuf, B'tok Shar Choli Yisrael. Shabbat Yimidei Zot, Rafo Pravo Lavo, Shabbat Isman Kariv, and Omar. May God bless our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Bless and heal all the members of our communal family who suffer illness, together with all others who suffer illness around the world. And though it is Shabbat and we refrain from petitionary prayer, we do trust and hope that healing is speedily on its way, and the hands of those who care for them are strengthened. And together we say, Amen.
The Torah reading continues in the middle of page 287, Pasuk 18. Tamot, Joseph. That's Joseph. Shvi'i. Can you reach up there? You can. Oh, they hear.
Baruch es Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vatitom Hashanahi Vayavo'u elav Bashana hasheni Vayomu lo nefachet me'adoni Im tam ha'keser u'mipnei ha'behema el Adoni Lo nishar lifnei Adoni Bilti im geviatenu v'yadmatenu Lama namud le'necha Gama nafnu, gama admatenu, knei otanu v'yat admatenu, ba'alachem, shenihiyah. Hanafnu v'yadmatenu avadim leparo, v'tein zera, v'nihyeh v'lo namud, v'cha'adama lo tisham. Vayiken Yosef, et kol admat, Mitzrayim, leparo, ki mafru Mitzrayim, Yisadehu ki chazak alehem hara'av, vatihi haaretz leparo, v'yet ha'am ha'evir oto le'arim, mikzei gavul Mitzrayim v'yat katzehu, rak admat kohanim lo kana, ki chapa kohanim be'ed paro, v'afu et kukam asher Natan lahem paro al ken lo makru et admatechem. Vayomer Yosef el ha'am hein kaniti etchem hayom v'et admatechem leparo helachem zera uzratem et ha'adama v'haya bituot unetatem kamisha leparo ve'arba hayadot yelachem lezera hasadeh ula'akalchem ula'asher bevatechem ula'efol etachem vayomru hefeitanu simtzachen b'nei Adoni vayinu avadim leparo vayasem ota Yosef lepo Ad hayom hazeh al admat Mitzrayim leparo lachomesh rak admot hakohanim levadam lo hayta leparo vayeshev Yisrael be'eretz Mitzrayim be'eretz Goshen vaye'achazu ba vayikru vayiru me'od.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם הגומל לחייבים טובות שגמלני כל טוב.
Please rise. Yikada, Yikada, Sheme Rabba. Mama, Yirakirte, Yamli Kampute. Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Vitbarach, Romam, Veyidase, Vitada, Vitale, Vitalal, Shemei Kucha. Lela, Mikol Vipata, Vishivata. Yamon. You may be seated. Reuben Abraham Maftir. We are on page 288, Pasuk 25.
אדוני עמכם. רבנן בارك وتدناهم وراء. بحربان بكل عام من أتعلم والتراث بركة أدوناي نوتن حتورا.
Amen. Vayomru hafeitanu nimtzachen b'nei Adoni vayinu avadim leparo vayasem ota Yosef lecho ad hayom hazeh al admat Mitzrayim leparo lachomesh rak admat hakohanim levadam lo hayka leparo vayeshev Yisrael be'eretz Mitzrayim be'eretz Goshen vaye'achazu ba vayifru vayirbu me'od.
همت تورتين هذا الجوار أكرم عشان نتعلم تورات همت بهاي أولام ما ترتبون ورقة أدوناي نوتين حتورا.
Please rise. Yamdu, I will
Oh, just that.
As we turn to our Haftarah, we have in it this message from Ezekiel of building unity in the Jewish people. So the idea of the Jewish people needing to work on our intra-connections is not new. Ezekiel is preaching this message 2,500 plus years ago. And he's talking in particular about the two kingdoms, right? We're referring historically to the two kingdoms of Judah and of Israel. Israel in the north, Judah in the south, containing Jerusalem, and the need of them to be together under one king. And he uses an image, a powerful image of two sticks or two branches that can become one, each one representing the separate kingdoms that can be held together in unity. So this idea of Jewish unity is so vital and important, and we see it's been around ever since we've been a people. We mirror that today even a little bit, not with sticks, but with our tzitzit, right? Where before the Shema, we gather together the four tzitzit, right? So that we gather together the Jews from the four corners of the world, using that metaphor, to have the tzitzit together, kind of representing the unified Jewish people. Well, at this time, it's certainly important, but it's also important every time to focus on building Amcha, to be building our people, to be building our connection to it, and certainly right now, we feel that so deeply. As we listen to a beautiful Haftarah, we want to be thinking about that for sure, the things that we're doing right now in order to build unity of the Jewish people and to build up the sense of Amcha, of one Jewish people. But it's even more important that once, God willing, that this war is behind us, that once Israel is again safe and secure, it's even more important that that day we continue. That we continue the efforts to build and strengthen Jewish unity and not get distracted by the power of thinking we have a better or we have the exact right vision. Finding a way to maintain our uniqueness, but also to invest in and to build the unity of the Jewish people. Obviously, a vital effort right now, but even more important in some ways, once this is over, that we keep going forward in that way. So something to think about as we listen to a beautiful Haftarah on page 291.
לעילוי נשמת אברהם בן שוקרי, יעקב שוקרי בן אברהם, וגם אליזבת בת יצחק, האדון תניאנו יענד. שמות זיכרון מבורך תמיד, לעולם ועד. ודיברתי על הנביאים ואנוכי חזון, הרביתי ויד הנביאים. אדם על ישוע מילו ירא, אדוני אלוהים דברי מילי ינבא. ציון במשפט תשא. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו לעולם, אשר בחרנו איתו וברצה ודבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוער בתורה ושעבדו ישראל עמו ובנוי האמת וסדר. ויהי דבר אדוני אלי לאמור, אתה בן אדם, קח לך עץ אחד וכתוב עליו ליהודה לבני ישראל חברו, ולקח עץ אחד וכתוב עליו ליוסף עץ אפרים וכל בית ישראל חברו. وقارم و تام ها دل ها دخالت ها و هایول عادی دیم بیاد خواه و خشر یمرو لخواه یمخواه لمرحلو تجید لا دبر الهی علیهم کوام ادونای الهیم اینه انی لغی ادیوته اشر بیاد افرایم بشکت اسرائیل حبرا ونعتت یوتام الله ادیرت یهودا راسیدن لسه هاد آیو هاد بیادی یادی آیو هستی مشه تیختو بلهم و یادی خواه لنهم بدبر علیهم کوامر ادونای الهیم اینه انی لغیت بن اسرائیل میبن گوی مشر حال خوشان و قیبستی و تام میسابیم هبتی و تام ادماتام واسیدی و تام لگوی ها برید باهر اسرائیل مخاص یهلا لخولان لملك ולא יחיו לשני הגויים ולא יעשו עוד לשתי ממלכות עוד ולא יטמאו לגלוליהם ושבוסיהם וכל פשעיהם והושעתי אותם מכל משפטיכם אשר הטו בהם וטיהרתי אותם והיו לי להם ואני אהיה להם לאלוהים ועבדי דוד מלך עליהם ורואה העוד יהיה לכולם ומשפטי ילכו וחוקותי ישמרו אותם ויושבו על הארץ אשר נתתי לעבדי ויעקב אשר יושבו בה אבותיכם ויושבו להם ובני בניהם עד עולם ודוד עבדי עשי להם לעולם וקראתי להם ברי שלום בריד עולם יהיה אותם ונתתי והרביתי אותם ונתתי מרגשי בתוכם לעולם והיום השכני עליהם והייתי להם לאלוהים ומה יהיו לי לעם ויודעו הגויים כי אני אדוני מקדש את ישראל יהיו מרגשי בתוכם לעולם גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם סור תדביר בכל הלכות, האוהל הנאמות, אומרותי המדבר מוגיימים שכל דברו אמת. תדל נאמון הטוב אנו אלוהינו, נאמון בדברך עוד וירום כי אל מלך נאמון ונאמון אותו לחצה אדוני, האוהל הנאמון בכל דברו. רעים הסיום כי בחיינו לענו ועד נפק תושבים מרבי ימינו לחצה אדוני. مسمى يسيون ببانها سمهين ودنويارين وبرياهن وبيباق مرمز داوید مكيها بيمهرا يابو يابن بينو عنك سلو شفدار ولو ينحلون عظيمت كبدو كبشن خد شيخا نشبعتولو كلو نخبين يلو رموت بركة أدوناي ماغن داوید على ترى ولا يوم شبات هذه شنوت اللام أدوناي ليبدو شاورها لخابود الشفار در حق أدوناي هنا نحن مدبلاغ مريم تاويد ورقيم خب في طول حيلات تاميد الأولام وايد بركة أدوناي نقديش شبات Amen.
You're welcome. It's lovely that we have different traditions contained within our community, and to be able to hear them, and actually even better when we cook in those ways and taste them. That's even better. We're going to return to our Siddur, page 148 for Yikum Khan, and then prayer for our country, prayer for the state of Israel, and a prayer for soldiers. So if you are reading or leading any of those, please come forward at this moment.
וכל מי שעוסקים בצורכי ציבור ובבניין ארץ ישראל באמונה, הקדוש ברוך הוא ישלם שכרם ויסיר מכל מחלה וירפא לכל גופם ויסלח לכל עוונם וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם עם כל ישראל אחיהם
A prayer for our country on page 148, and I ask all those who are able, please to stand for the prayer for the United States and the prayer for the state of Israel. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony, to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land, under your providence, be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen. 149.
אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל והשיב צמיחת עולתנו. הגן עליה ולברך אסתך ופרוסתך סוכת שלומך, ושלח אורך ועמך וראשיה שריה ויועציה, ותקנה בעצה טובה לפניך. חזק את ידינו בארץ קודשנו, ויקירנו לעינינו ישועה ותראת ניצחון לארצנו. ונתת שלום לארץ, ושמחת עולם ומשפחה, ונאמר אמן.
May be seated. Prayer for soldiers.
May he who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless the men and women who serve in the armed forces of the United States of America, and the men and women who serve in the Israeli Defense Forces, for they stand to protect our nations and our ideals on land and sea and in the air. May God make their enemies fall from before them. May the Holy One, blessed be He, watch over our soldiers and protect them from every accident and every distress, and send blessing and success to the work of their hands. And through them, may the promise of the Torah be fulfilled, as it is written, for the Lord your God will walk with you to fight alongside you against your enemies and to save you and redeem you. And let us say,
Amen. Page 151 for Osprey.
אשרי שבטך עוד יבלו חסר.
They did this before Shabbat. They do like the sermon, but I'm talking before. It's afterwards, I'm not sure. Because it's usually before Shabbat.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו, יברך ובשבשו שריונם בערב, ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. הללויה.
Please stand.
יהללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו, הודו המלך לשמיים, וירם קרן בין העמו, תהילה לכל הסליחה, לבני ישראל עם ברובו, הללויה, הללויה. כמו הגל, לבנון וסיריון כמו בנרמים. כל אדוני חוצב להבות אש, כל אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש. כל אדוני יבוא אל עמו, ויחסות כמעלות, ובהיכלות קולו מרכבות.
Ways are pleasant and all its paths are peace. Help us turn to you, Adonai, and we shall return. Renew our lives as in days of old.
May be seated.
Here's a test From the Bima, I'm sure nearly all can pass. How do we say good in Hebrew? No, absolutely. So we say good in Hebrew by saying tov, and if it's tov, meaning it's good, usually we want more, right? And in Aramaic, you can actually say tuva, or it can be used in the same way to mean more of something. And so anyone who was here on Thursday night and got to meet and learn with our scholar and our soldier and our medic in residence, Dr. Tuvia Book, you can see his name if you didn't know already, wants more of the good word and good teaching and more time with him. So it's so good to see so many of you who are here Thursday back, and it's my honor to call to the Amud, my good friend Dr. Tuvia Book, who will be sharing with us some thoughts about the current crisis, the current situation, and Israel's response. Know that right now will be a more formal presentation, but that after Kiddush, in place of Chumash with Rashi, we'll have an opportunity to gather in the Lifelong Learning Center and to continue the learning, and also in a slightly less formal setting so that there is an opportunity for questions and answers at that point. Okay? But without further ado, our own Dr. Tuvia Book.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Let's try that one again. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
That's a bit better. Okay, on the subject of names. So when I was born, I got the name Tuvia because the Rabbi only explained what the Tuv is. Does anyone know what the Ya is? Right, when I was born, my parents said, good God, and that's how I got the name. Right, the goodness of God. Actually, my late grandfather was called Tevius. Lucky they tweaked it slightly, or I've never heard the end of that one. And coincidentally, he was also a combat medic, but in the British 8th Army in World War II, fighting in North Africa and Italy. So clearly, when you name someone, names are very important, and that was an incredible coincidence. In fact, in my original army service, I actually wore the same scarf that he wore in the Western Desert when I was in the IDF as well. So when you look at the parasha this week, besides having all the songs of Joseph the Technicolor Dreamcoat, what is the word, if you have to sum it up in one word, that would sum up what this parasha is actually about, by Yigash? That's the name of it. What would you say it's all about? We are
unification of the Jewish people.
Yeah, community. I heard the word community, right? Family, mishpacha. Right, it's all about family, and that's what really what I'm here to talk about as well. And we're talking about the. It's not the them and the us, right? We need Israel, and Israel needs us. It's that simple, right? And we always start our day off with hakarat tov, or recognizing the good, and that's why the first word that comes out of my mouth should either be modeh or modah. Ani, modeh ani or modah ani. Whereas anyone who knows a little bit of Hebrew will know there should be ani modeh or ani modah. I thank. So why do we reverse it to thank I? Because the first word coming out of our mouth should be gratitude, right? Or what we call in Hebrew hakarat hatov. So as on Thursday night, I wanted just to open this presentation by expressing my gratitude to this particular community. One of the many questions we're going to ask after the war, besides why was Israel so woefully unprepared, why did it take so long to respond, why wasn't there that equipment we needed for the army, there's a lot of questions, right? And we all know why Jews like asking questions with questions. Do you know why? I don't know, why do they? Anyway, so basically that really is what we're going to be talking about. Some of the questions about concerning the war from my perspective, now there's some through the soldiers' eyes, but also as far as I go out the top of this particular community, right at the beginning of the war, before people realized how long the war would be, the rabbi called me up and or WhatsApped me and said, what does your unit need the most? We have a lot of people who would like to give. We'd like to know from the field, what do you need the most? And even then it was clear, especially because of the hostage situation, there wasn't going to be a quick in and out campaign. There would be prolonged. And with the exception of 1948, Israel has not fought a winter war. And one of the things we did not have was winter equipment. So I said, well, it's probably going to go on for months, and there's a short but brutal winter in Israel, especially when you're sleeping in a tent and outside a lot. And I said, we're probably going to need some layers, and there's combat medics and doctors and paramedics in my unit. A lot of the fighting's at night. We're wanting some really good night sight, night torches. That's not a piece of wood with a flame on, that's a flashlight. We need some night torches. And literally within a week, we had the best equipped combat medical unit in the IDF. We got amazing black night fighting North Face fleeces, shells, and we got incredible torches, including red lights. Now really is thanks to your community. So as far away as you were, you're thousands of kilometers away that you were, and we felt your love, we felt your embrace in the field as well as the envy and jealousy of all the other IDF units. Like, why they got North Face fleeces? But anyway, so I wanted to start with Hakawatatov, thanking you guys. It's not a them and us, as the parasha talks about, it really is about family, right? All of Israel are responsible one for the other. And that really was the message of this parasha as well. That is what Yehuda finally realized. It wasn't just a favorite brother or this or that. We're all family, we're all together. Now, there was an American from Hannibal, Missouri, called Samuel Longhorn Clemens, otherwise known as Mark Twain, who made a famous observation in a magazine that still exists called Harper's Bazaar, when he visited the Holy Land. But on the way to the Holy Land, he also stopped in many other countries in Europe, did the Grand Tour. Back then, it was very difficult to travel back in the 1870s. And the way most people could travel was vicariously. So he wrote a book about his experiences called The Innocents Abroad, which is hilarious because on the one hand, there's very witty descriptions of the countries he visits, but the innocents were the American travel companions who he's making fun of compared to the cultured European cosmopolitan. He was talking about the provincial Americans. And it's still a funny, laugh out loud book, even to read it today, a century and a half later. But when he traveled through Europe, what did he notice? He went to the great civilizations, what's left of them. So he went to the Parthenon, that's before the British stole the marbles, or acquired them. Lord Elgin acquired the marbles. He saw the pyramids in Egypt, he went to the Colosseum. He saw these ruined civilizations. But in the shadow of these great monuments, he also saw Jewish communities as well. And he thought about it, and he came back with a very famous article. It's called Concerning the Jews. And the question he asked in this article, he goes through a whole timeline, and it's very relevant to today. He writes, the Egyptian, the Babylonian, and the Persian arose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and Roman followed, they made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other peoples have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, they're burned out, and they sit in the twilight now. Or have vanished. The Jews saw them all, the Jew beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. And he finished this entire article with a rhetorical question. What is the secret of his immortality? In other words, Mark Twain asked, what did the Jews do right that everyone else did wrong? Right? Just imagine going back 2,000 years as this Roman 10th Legion is destroying the Second Temple, and you tap a legionnaire on his shoulder and say, oh, by the way, this Jewish temple you're busy destroying, well, the Jews are going to be back in 2,000 years praying in this very site, and the Roman Empire will be dust and ashes. How would that Roman legionnaire have reacted to you? We'd have a good laugh, and give you a smiley face in your neck with his sword, and say, well, that can't be, because we're the Roman Empire, we rule the world. And yet, 2,000 years later, the Jews are here, and as Mark Twain mentioned, all forces pass but the Jew. So I don't start in the Jewish way with a question. What did the Jews do right that everyone else did wrong? How do we define the flow of history? We'll make it easy, 3 things, and I'm happy to take answers from the audience here. What are the 3 things the Jews did that kept us Jewish, despite not physically living in our land, despite not having a temple, not having a king, the priests having no power, being dispersed throughout the globe, and yet we're still here today? What are the 3 things the Jews did? Pardon? Okay, that's the opening song from Fiddler on the Roof, right? Dun, 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 dun. My tradition.
I think their faith in God.
We'll connect that to the first one, tradition and faith, right? That's one.
The minyan.
The minyan, community, right? It's peoplehood. It's incredible, right? The sense of nation. And last but not least, which is very much the mortar that keeps those two bricks together and very relevant to today, and that is, what do we not forget?
Zion.
Right. For the sake of Zion, right? We didn't forget that we are one, we have one Torah, the Torah of Israel, Torah Israel. We have one community wherever we live. And it was fascinating today to hear both the Persian and Ashkenazi different traditions. But at the end of the day, we're one community. We're Am Yisrael, right? The people of Israel. And most important, of course, Eretz Israel, the land of Israel itself. If you look at this particular building, you see all three of those features. The community together, we're here learning about our traditions. And which direction does it face? East here. In South Africa, it definitely faces the north. So it depends where you live is the question. But it faces Israel. And in Israel, it faces Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim, of course, Har HaBayit. So that, if anyone's been to the continent on Friday night, you feel the energy of 15 million Jews focused on one place. Torah Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael. That's a secret of Jewish survival. There's no them and us. Now, what's the big difference between what's going on now in Israel and what has happened to Jews previously? We hear quite often this statistic on the opening day, on the 7th of October, was the largest tragedy of the Jewish people, the largest amount of Jews killed in one day since the Shoah itself, 1,200 hours in Israel on the 7th of October. And living in Modi'in, which is a nice place in the middle. And very unusually, we heard a siren. And because it was Simchat Torah, and because it was Shabbat, we weren't exactly sure what was going on. But we went to the safe rooms, and only after Shabbat, Simchat Torah, the enormity of what had happened hit us. So there's different ways to react when you hear that kind of news, right? The way I was taught, and this we discussed on Thursday night from my military training as a combat medic in an infantry unit, was if something's right, you've got to go and take care of it yourself. You can't say, let someone else do it. So despite the fact that I had actually aged out of military reserve service about 1.5 decades previously, the first thing I did because of my medical training is go down to the army, go down to the bases, and basically talk my way in. Because anything you know about Israeli culture is whenever someone says the word no to you, that means start negotiating, right? No is never no. It's always la avan, right? No but. So when they say, sorry, you finished the army 15 years ago, there's no way you're going to go back in, that's like, bing, that's what lights the fire. So I fought and I fought and I fought, and eventually I got back into the army. So that was the toughest battle, beating Israeli bureaucracy. So once we were in the army, of course, it's a surreal world, because on the one hand, you know why you're there. And there's a tremendous sense of peoplehood. As you all remember, just before the war broke out, Israel was in a really bad way. Literally, probably the closest it's ever been to civil war. And that's not an exaggeration. The society was ripped apart by the government policies, dealing with judicial reform, and we were in a really bad way. Ironically and sadly, only with this tremendous tragedy is there tremendous cohesion and unity. You see that nowhere more than in the military itself. When I joined up into the army, the thing that always amazes me is an absolute melting pot, whether it's my traditional service in the Givati Combat Brigade, or whether it's my reserve duty. We have people in my unit from every background you can imagine. We have Jews, we have Druze. Sounds similar, but there's a different religion with the Z. Basically we have Druze, we have Caucasian Christians, we have Muslim trackers, all in our unit. We have observant Jews who are more orthodox, who would probably vote for the Shas party from North Africa with big sit out and kippot. We have tattoo-pierced Tel Aviv, very non-traditionally observant Jews. We have veteran Israelis who've been there for generations. We have people like me who are first generation. We have people from South America, from South Africa. We have people who are rich and people who are poor. We have people who are observant and less observant. People who are left-wing, people who are right-wing. But the second you put that uniform on, what happens? No one cares anymore, because you're there for one purpose and one purpose alone, and that is to serve and and to protect the homeland. It is the great equalizer. It's a phenomenal sociological, and if only we could replicate that to the wider society, Israel would be in a very, very good place. And I was explaining to the rabbi last night a particular thing that happened where I saw how the army is different than wider society. So religion, rather than unite, quite often divides in Israel. We were at Kibbutz Be'eri, known as one of the kibbutzim of the slaughter, and we were next to the cemetery. And the crazy thing about the cemetery, that was our jumping off point to go into Gaza, because what my unit actually does is we are surgeons, paramedics, combat medics, and infantry. And once the soldiers, our heroes, are wounded in Gaza, there's an embedded medic or paramedic and doctor who are in the unit, and they do the initial stabilization. Then they bring them as close as they can to the border, and we swoop in and carry on the treatment. So of course, if it's a very seriously wounded soldier, we're going to call in the helicopter commandos to do an immediate extraction. And if it's slightly less serious, we'll take them in armored ambulances to the local hospital and stabilize and do what we need to do on the way. And we were at the jumping off point to the border, which happened to be next to the cemetery of Kibbutz Be'eri. And we noticed a truck put up from the Ministry of Defense, and they went to a fresh grave, which was a soldier who'd been killed on the 7th of October. He was a Chaver Kibbutz who died defending his kibbutz on the 7th of October, and they were putting on his Matzeva, his tombstone, after 30 days. And there was no family there because it was a closed military zone. So there was no one from the kibbutz, no family. And we made a decision on the spot that we are all family. We're all the brothers and sisters of this soldier. We would go and make a ceremony, an informal ceremony, and say the Kaddish. So we went, in Hebrew it's called Chesed Shel Emet, which is true kindness, which is the highest form of kindness, because they're not exactly going to pop up and say thank you afterwards. You're doing this the right thing to do, right? So we went there, we were standing around the grave, and one of the officers talked about a eulogy. We looked him up online to see who he was and what unit he'd been in, and then we showed a picture so we could feel connected, and standing in is his family. And at the end we recited the Kaddish, and then something very unusual happened. You might not think it's unusual here in this particular synagogue, but in Israel it's extremely unusual. Everyone said the Kaddish standing together. The women who are in our unit, the men in our unit, the religious Orthodox observant, the total secular soldiers all stood together and said the Kaddish together, with no mechitza, with no differentiation. And at that moment I thought to myself, if I can pack up that unity and send it to greater Israeli society, we've been a really good way. And that's what the army does. The army is the great equalizer in society in Israel. And in Israel there's a very high sense of duty and morale. In fact, the first question any wounded soldier asks when we pick them up is, when can I go back to my unit? And not all of them are going to go back to the unit, because some of the wounds are pretty serious. That's always the first question. When can I go back to my unit? And after that, can I speak to my family? It's always, when can I go back to my brothers and sisters? And there's a tremendous, even now as we enter close to the 3rd month, the motivation is still there. I was fighting for 65 days straight, so I just took a couple of weeks off to visit my own family here. And I can tell you on day 65 was the same motivation as day 1. It's a milchemet en brera, it's a war without a choice. And we're fighting because en lanu eretz acheret, as you know, we do not have another land. Whether you live in Israel or live outside of Israel, a strong Israel is good for Jews everywhere. And we all understand that as well. And that's the big difference between what happened in the show and what happened now. People have always hunted Jews. The difference now in our history is we can fight back and defend ourselves with honor. When I say we, we're talking about young people. The soldiers in the army were just in high school, and now they have the whole weight of Jewish history on their shoulders. And of course, people ask questions. Questions people ask are, what is going on right now as far as the morality and ethics of the war? These are questions people ask who are not very deep in science. The question that IDF soldiers ask as well. So let's start off with what Goebbels called is the great lie, right? The great lie is like, can the whole world be wrong and Israel right? And that's what it seems. If you look at the mainstream media, there's quite a hostile attitude towards Israel. Israel's definitely measured on a very different standard than anyone else, right? Except the first day or two when there was almost universal sympathy. That changed very, very quickly. Because people don't mind Jews as victims. The good Jew is the little boy with his hands up in the famous Warsaw Ghetto photo. But what people are upset about today is a reaction to Jewish action. It's a reaction to Jewish action. The empowered Jew bothers people, right? The little boy with his hands up, that's a good Jew. The Israeli soldier on top of a tank, that's a bad Jew, right? And it's a real problem in the world media. So let's talk about war crimes, just to start off with. A very good friend of mine in Modern is a lawfare, by the way, is a big thing. It's not just warfare, it's also lawfare as well. He's an international military criminal lawyer. And every decision that IDF makes is based on international law. So very briefly, I'll ask you guys to give me some examples of what war crimes are. Give me a war crime according to the Geneva Convention.
Collective punishment.
A collective punishment, that's one, okay? Another one, that's if you deliberately target a civilian population. So targeting a civilian population or facilities, such as airports, okay? What else?
Bombing indiscriminately.
Okay, firing rockets at civilian populations, that's also a war crime according to the Geneva Convention. What else?
Killing a prisoner.
Torture, killing prisoners, using civilian shields, using child soldiers, tunneling into a foreign country to kidnap and murder citizens of that country, to use protected sites such as mosques and schools, to store munitions or attack from. These are all war crimes. So, for example, when Israel attacks a UNRWA school and the UN describes it as criminal, people just swallow that one up. What is the reality according to military law? Legally, and I'm quoting from a military lawyer, if the IDF believed a school was being used to store munitions or as a sniper point, then that school or mosque or ambulance ceases to have its protection under the Geneva Convention and is a legal target. It's really, really simple. When the world leaders say Israel should do more, what are they actually saying? They're endorsing and encouraging the Hamas's policy of using human shields. Israel should do more. The former Israeli ambassador to the United States, American-born Dr. Michael Oren, famously said, being Hamas means never having to say you're sorry. You can do whatever you want, but Israel always has to defend what it's doing as opposed to Hamas itself. And this is the world that we live in. So why does the Hamas use human shields? Why do they? There's two main reasons. What are those two reasons?
Propaganda.
What kind of propaganda? What do they want to happen?
They want the world to be angry at Israel that they're killing
Correct.
innocent people.
One of them is they want Israel to kill their citizens for propaganda value. Now, for people like us, with a civilized mind, we can't really conceive that it's deliberate policy of the Hamas to want their civilians to be killed so they get the opprobrium of the world heaped on Israel. And that will bring Israel to its knees and stim its ability to defend itself. That's one. And the second reason, of course, is they use their civilians to protect their munitions and fighters. They're deep underground whilst the civilians are on top. And Israel, of course, is the polar opposite. We use our weapons to defend our civilians, right? So there's two very different ways of looking at it. Then you hear the words about disproportionate war, especially if you listen to the BBC, that should be renamed the PBC, the Palestinian Broadcasting Corporation. Why? And by the way, Palestinians cannot pronounce the name of their country because there's no P in Arabic, so they say Palestine. So BBC is quite an appropriate name, actually. Disproportionality. Have you heard that term many times when you hear CNN or BBC? Unless you listen to Fox News, of course. You'll hear that term a lot, disproportionality. What does that really mean? They say it's a disproportionate war. What are they saying?
To define proportionality. So,
Define.
does Israel go into Gaza and find a festival? And how many children should they find and behead?
Okay.
How many Palestinian women should they go in?
Right.
You know,
Correct. So that, according to the official legal definition, what happens to one should be exactly proportionate to what happens to the other. But when you look at the statistics supplied by the Hamas-controlled health ministry, which is never questioned, of course, by any world media organization, there are far more deaths on the Gaza side than on the Israel side. Therefore, it's a disproportionate war, is the claim, right? But if you're really going to go to the legal letter of the law, you should be doing exactly what this gentleman said. Well, let's see how many women were raped, how many babies were burnt alive, and people had their heads chopped off with blunt instruments. And we'll do exactly the same on their side. So obviously it's quite farcical, and Israel should not be lectured by the world, considering that Israel is the only liberal democracy in that particular region. Panther, what would you like to add?
If you take away Iron Dome, with a number of rockets, thousands of them, the damage would be untold.
Of course, because we invest the resources. Did you know that the Palestinian Authority in the Gaza Strip is the highest per capita recipient of foreign aid on the planet Earth? It's estimated in the last 16 years they have received a staggering $50 billion of foreign aid. Now, in case you're just looking quite neutral here, you should be slightly considering a lot of that is your taxpayers' money. $50 billion of aid. And where has that money gone? Instead of building up a new Singapore, instead of investing in defending its citizens, where has that money gone? To two main sources, which are? Weapons and Thomas is one, right? And the other one is the private bank accounts of the Hamas leaders, who about $50 billion is estimated $16 billion went just to their bank accounts, their Swiss numbered accounts. So I'd like to, on behalf of the Hamas leadership, thank the United States citizens for your generosity in giving them lovely inflated bank accounts, and also for weapons of death and destruction. So it's not that they've never had the potential, which is just never acted on. Whereas Israel, every time we find Iron Dome missile, every single time is $100,000, because two have to be fired at once, each one costs $50,000. And many, many are fired, right? So millions and millions. Again, we can thank the American taxpayers for that as well. That's a good example of where your resources go for defensive capability. So proportionality does not mean the numbers on each side. What it's actually talking about, if it's a military target, for example, and before Israel attacks any military target, as you saw from Thursday night, there are drones overhead, and they look at what's on the ground. If you see a rocket launcher with 5 civilians next to it, can you attack it or not, according to the Geneva Convention?
Yes.
Why? Because what are you thinking when you think of proportionality? If that rocket launcher is launched and gets through the Iron Dome's not 100% successful. It's 90-something percent, which is pretty incredible. It's the best anti-missile defense on the planet Earth. But it's not 100%. If that missile is launched, then the potential for civilian or military damage is much higher, and therefore it's a legitimate military target. These are really, really simple. So let's look at morality, of course. Any IDF soldier, myself included, everyone, would rather die than kill innocent civilians. The reality of the IDF is the mirror opposite of what's portrayed on college campuses in the United States of America. Right? We have something called the Torah Neshek, or the cleanliness of arms, and we learn it. We have moral officers. We have people who give us ethics, morality lessons in the army and in reserves. It's compulsory. We start every single week off with an hour presentation on morality and ethics, right? We have a book that fields go around in the field about rules of engagement, when you can and cannot open fire. Colonel Richard Kemp, who I quoted last night, the British former head of forces in Afghanistan and Iraq, who's not Jewish and not Israeli, his soundbite is, the Israeli army have taken greater steps than any other army in the history of warfare to minimize the harm to innocents in a combat zone. An army is not required to put millions of leaflets on civilian population, send SMSs, in Hebrew that is, lesmes otam, to send SMSs, or to put harmless roof-knocking munitions, or make phone calls. Of course, the IDF does that. In fact, they go much further. There's no army in the history of warfare that warned the enemy of its intentions. Anyone who's read The Art of War, a 2,000-year-old fantastic book by Sun Yat-sen, will know that rule number one is the element of surprise. And Israel always loses it in order to minimize its civilian casualties. So we should be able to stand up straight, knowing we have such a moral and ethical army. It's never in the history of warfare, according to Richard Kemp, has an army done so much to minimize collateral damage. Does it happen? Yes. Are civilians killed in the Gaza Strip? Sure they are, but it's not deliberate government policy. War is not in slow motion with classical music in the background. War is chaos. The army, as anyone knows who has served in the military will know, is 99% boredom and 1% of absolute chaos and adrenaline poisoning, and accidents happen. But it's not a deliberate policy. The culture of Judaism itself underlies the laws of morality of the IDF and the sanctity of life. It's not a culture of death. It's not a death cult like the Masada, like Hamas, where the parents are happy that their children blow themselves up and happy that they kill Jews. One of the Hamas terrorists called up his parents on the 7th of October, and the voice call was intercepted by Israeli intelligence, saying, "Mom, Dad, be proud. Your son just murdered 10 Jews. 10. Now, well done, Mohammed." We can't relate to it. It's a different culture. We don't glorify death, right? We're saddened by it. There's a reason we don't lick our fingers when we do the 10 plagues on the Seder night. It's an unfortunate necessity, war. No Israeli, so it's not a war culture. You see a lot of teenagers walking around with semi-automatic weapons in Israel, but we don't glorify war. It's an unfortunate necessity. And we've learned through our long history, when people say they want to kill Jews, believe them. Believe them. And there's two kinds of Jews. The Jew who can't defend themselves, and the Jew who can defend themselves. And we're very lucky that we live in an era when we can defend ourselves, because we've seen what happens when we can't. So, to conclude, again, we'll have a more informal discussion after lunch where we can have a Q&A. It'll be more like sitting down. Any questions you have, I'm more than happy to engage and discuss. When I see the media distorting the facts when there's trouble in Israel, I want to do something about it. So what I did, not everyone has to do, I put on my uniform and went down to fight for our honor and our pride. My uniform was later upgraded thanks to your lovely community, and I had a very, thank you Candace for bringing the shirts, thank you for bringing the trousers. We had an upgraded tactical uniform thanks to your, we as in the royal we, thanks to the generosity of your community. We had to do something about it. I always say to my birthright groups, to Jew is to do, right? The first commandment that we got, Avraham and Sarah, was Lech Lecha. It wasn't believe in God, it was get up and go. Don't just talk the talk, but walk the walk. So what can we do? So I'll tell you what you shouldn't be doing. Two things. You shouldn't be silent, right? Things don't go well in Jewish history when the Jews are silent. My cousins who live in London, and their children go to a Jewish school, do you know what advice their school gave the students? Take off your kippot, hide your blazer with a Jewish symbol, girls tuck in your chais and stars of David. That's very negative advice given in the 21st century in London, but you can understand it when every single Shabbat you have 100,000 people chanting in the streets of London for death to Israel and the Jewish people. That's not what we should do. We shouldn't be silent. We shouldn't be afraid because we're Jewish. We should be proclaiming to the world that we are a light to the nations. If you believe, you shouldn't be afraid. So what are the 4 practical things you can do? One, exactly what I read about in your community bulletin, which is Lech Lecha, just go to Israel. I noticed that on the 4th to 9th of February 2024, there is a mission of this particular synagogue. And that's the most important thing to do, to visit Israel and to visit it often. America's nice, but Israel's our home. Let's be honest here. There's no substitute in a classroom, no matter how eloquent the speech is, and anything with a British accent sounds eloquent, and no matter how eloquent the speech is, you have to go and you can't replace the experience. You need to commit to go, each and every one of you, to visit Israel in the very near future. Israel needs us and we need Israel. So to go on this particular mission, we have an opportunity, it's a great opportunity to see with your own eyes what it means to have a home now, and to meet the heroes of the Jewish people, the young men and women putting their life on the line, and to show the gratitude, to volunteer, to go and help. Even picking avocados has become a heroic endeavor in Israel, believe it or not, because most of the agriculture is on the farms around the Gaza Strip. All these things, volunteering in hospitals, bringing happiness, Bikur Cholim, these are all incredible things you cannot do passively. To Jewish to do. So the first thing you can definitely do is go to Israel, perform that first commandment, Lech Lecha, And I expect to meet you guys in Israel with one, if not two, full buses of congregants. Obviously, the second thing is to get educated, not just to put on your social media with all your friends who think look just like you and live in your bubble, but to reach out to other people, to educate, right? The most educated people in the United States, theoretically, are on college campuses, theoretically. We've seen that's quite not the case at all. To reach out to your non-Jewish friends, explain what's happening in Israel, and that involves being educated. To be a leader in your community, be active in your temple as you guys are, in your federation, and to contribute as much as you can. Now, being educated, if you want to advocate for Israel, you need three things. What is the Holy Trinity of Israel advocacy? One, passion. You need to be passionate about Israel. You guys are passionate about Israel. You're in this synagogue, you visit Israel frequently. But it's not enough. You need to have knowledge as well. You need to know what you're talking about and the delivery as well, getting it across and knowing who your audience are. So the most important thing, to wrap up with this quote, is that as you walk in, if anyone's been to Yad Vashem, to the Children's Memorial, as you walk in, there's a quote from Sefer Mishlei, the book of Proverbs, and that quote says, Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, which basically means the candle of God is the soul of man. And there's a lot of darkness in the world right now, and we need to light it up. And one candle can light up a dark room. And each and every one of us, by our actions, by being educated, by having the passion, by doing, by visiting Israel, by having that connection alive, and understanding without Israel, without community, without our traditions, there would be no Judaism. Israel is the mortar that holds that together. And I wanted to finish my presentation with by asking you guys to rise for a moment's silence. Because one thing we've all learned, and that is freedom is not free. Freedom is not free. Right now, we have lost hundreds of young men and women, the best of the best. And at every single memorial ceremony in the army, we finish off with "B'motam tzivu lanu et ha'chayim." With their death, they gave us life. And what has been the hope for 2,000 years of the Jewish people? Hatikva. Hatikva shnot alpayim, the hope for 2,000 years. Lihiyot am chofshi ba'atzenu. To be a free people in our land. But no one came up to the Jews and said, you poor Jews, take a state on a silver platter. That's the Chaim Weizmann quote. Lo kibanu et medina, am lagash al kesef. No one gave us our plate on a silver platter. We paid a heavy price, and we are paying a heavy price in blood and in tears for our state. So I wanted to have a moment's silence in honor of those young men and women who paid the ultimate price for our freedom as Jews everywhere. That's an oath we swear at the wall, to protect the state of Israel and Jews everywhere, and to conclude by singing the Hatikva together with the famous concluding words, I hope for 2,000 years, Liot am chofshi ba'atzenu, to be a free people in our land.
You'll have a chance to get more personal, more intimate with Dr. Book in a little bit after Kiddush. Going to remain standing up for the Chatzi Kaddish before the Musaf Amidah, where we'll be davening a Heicha Kedusha. But let me just remind everyone the brilliant teachings of Dr. King that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and that you do not banish darkness with darkness. You banish darkness with light. It's the only way, and that needs to be our guiding principle. So, Chatzi Kaddish 155, then we'll begin the Amidah together, 156b through 157, and then we can daven on our own quietly.
יגדל ויתקדש שמך, ויברח חירותי וימלך מלכותי בחייך ויומך ובחייך בית ישראל. פגלה פגלה ובצמח קרים רוחם יהי שמרה במבורך ויום יום המאיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומה ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל לשם ולקודשה ליל המקווה ברכתה ושירתה זושתה ונחמתה תמירם בעלמה והימרו ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב אלוהי שרה אלוהי רבקה אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה העבר הגדול הגיבור והנורא אביון ומלך השרים וטובים וכהני הכל וזוכר חטאי אבות ומביא גואל לבני ידיהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ופוקר מושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיה מתים מטרה והושיע משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם מחלקת חיים וחסד מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מחמוך בגבורות ומדום מלך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצליח ישועה ונאמתה לאחיות מתים ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה נארץ הבן אדישך כסוציח שרפי קודש המקדישים שמך בקודש ככתוב היה לביך וקרא זר ויאמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך כל הארץ כבודו מלא עולם ישרתיו שנים זה לזה איה מקום כבודו ליומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך ממקומו יפה ברחמים ויחונם יחדים שמו ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד פעמיים יהבה שמה אומרים שמה ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד הו אלוהינו אבינו הו מלכנו מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו להיות לכם לאלוהים. ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, הילוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד קודמך ולנצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ונשבח אלוהינו והתפינוני המושתי עולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. עושה שלום במרומיו, יעשה שלום עלינו, ויעבור ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו, ויעבור ישראל, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו, ויעבור ישראל.
181 for Peggy Shalem and then in Elohim.
יגדל מקדש ברכה, ויגדל חירותם ימית מלכותם וחייכון ומלכון וחייך בבית ישראל, והגדל ומכרים יאמרו אמן. ישמר במבורך, ויעל עולם במגע יתברך. יברא וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומה ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי קודשה ברכו. לעילם יקבל חטא לשיר הדש ברדה וחמתה תמירה ויעלמה ויאמרו אמן. יקבל צלותו לבאות לכל ישראל קדם אבוהו למשמיה ויאמרו אמן. יהא שלום רבה משמיה וחיים עלינו בכל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. כאלוהינו וכאדוננו וכמלכנו וכמושיענו מי כאלוהינו מי כאדוננו מי כמלכנו מי כמושיענו נותן אלוהינו נותן אדוננו נותן מלכנו זכינו לשבח לדור לחגוג לתת גאולה ליוצא בראשית שלא עשנו לגויי הארצות ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה שלא שמנו חלקנו כהם ולא רדנו ככל המונם ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ושכננו זאת גם במלכים ונאמר והיה אדוני במלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
May be seated, although mourners and those observing the yard sites will remain standing as we recall our communal yard sites for this 11th day of Tevet. Fanny Romano, Jack Ellman, Louis Dworkin, Mitchell Corson, Beatrice Lisogorski, Rose Bass, Solomon Goldstein, and Thelma Goldstein. And we extend our condolences to Sharon Solomon on the death of her uncle this week, and also to David Mandel on the loss of his father Howard as well this week. Our thoughts and our prayers are with them, as now mourners and those observing the yard site recite Mourners Kaddish on 184. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shnei Rabbah, V'yalmad, Yivrach, Yimuteh, V'yamliv Machlateh, V'chayet Kon, V'yomet Kon, V'chayet V'chol Beit Yisrael, V'adamav Yizman Karim Yimru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach, V'elam L'mei Amayim, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yishpa'ar, V'yisramam, V'yisnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shemei Kudishah, B'rikur, Leila Minko, Birkata, V'shirata, Tushtakata, V'nechemata, Damirani, Alma, V'yimru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'yimru. Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimroma, V'yaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'yimru. Amen. We wish and hope and pray that God's comfort, together with the support and love of your community, helps make each loss and every observance of it meaningful and helpful and supportive. And together we say, Amen. I think, Debbie, did you want to say anything? Make any announcements? Okay.
Just want to wish everybody a happy New Year.
Thank you. A happy New Year. Exactly, for everyone. We do want to take a moment, though, to remember Hakarat HaTov, to recognize the good, and to take a moment to be able to share Simcha moments from the week or from the recent past. We're not that tightly bound to the calendar of the week, but does someone have a good thing to share, a good happening? Please.
I just got permission to share this. Our older daughter just got engaged last night.
We've got an engagement. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. It doesn't have to be at that level.
This is the same one who stood up, you know, because she had the sign. And
Yes.
Okay, it's the same one.
Oh, well. Very good. Okay. I will share that it was wonderful, a simcha, to be able to see Tuvia's face again and to welcome him to this community after his month of service so far in Gaza. I couldn't see him there. When I was there, he was in and I was on the side, but It's good to see him safe. Someone's got to, Michael.
Well, I don't generally like to go in advance, but I may not be here next weekend. And this coming Thursday is my last day of work in my office.
Wonderful retirement. Indeed. Going once, going twice, okay. Beautiful Simcha moments, absolutely. We'll have a chance after Kiddush in the Lifelong Learning Center to get less formal and maybe more intimate in questions and answers with Dr. Book. As he mentioned, the Mission to Israel is live. You can sign up, and hopefully we'll have the chance to see Dr. Book when we're there as well. This coming week is a quiet one in terms of programming because of the holiday week, which means all the more so we need support and help. It means all the more so we need support and help making minyan, right? That means every morning, 6:45, every evening at 7:30, except for the next 2 Mondays, which will be the luxurious hour of 9 a.m. But otherwise, we need help making minyan. So that means if you are a minyan person, ignore this message because you're already coming. But if you are not a regular person in minyan, that means I'm speaking really to you. And to you if you are on the Zoom, the stream. So keep that in mind. We're going to do and also please, a Yasher Koach to our Torah readers this morning, to Lena and Vered Ben Gideon, who have wonderful parents. To the cantor for pinch hitting in a very tight moment, and to Carolyn Canova for beautifully reading Torah again, and to our gabbis, to Michael Mann for davening, also for Norman for Sukkot Zimra, and especially to our cantor, not just for beautiful Shachris, but for getting us out just afternoon, even though we just started 5 minutes ago in Musaf. So Yasher Koach. In the Haftorah, yes, I'm sorry. And to Nurola for our beautiful Haftorah, giving us a nice contrasting sound and a flavor of a different approach to Haftorah in our reading, which is beautiful. Thank you for bringing that up. That means so we'll go to Kiddush, and then we can have that chance. And then today we have Mincha at 4:15. Mincha at 4:15. Shabbat's over at 5:17, so it'll be a tight window. And by the way, just in case you weren't here when I made the announcement earlier, which many of you weren't, our service this morning is being streamed on our new live control service. You can still find it in the same places, but it's being done in a slightly different way. So we have a camera right up there, which means all of our services in here on holidays and Shabbatot can also be streamed now. So that means Mincha and Mariv and Havdalah will also be able to be there, or will be. So a great addition to our ability to make sure that people have access to what we do, even when they can't be here in person. Although, as always, if you can, it's best to be here in person, right? Not just for Kiddush, but also so you can say hi to Paul, or Panina, or Zahava, among others. And me. I would love to see you too. So we're going to conclude with a little Don Olam, and then Kiddush and Motzi, and we already did a prayer for Israel in St. Hatikva, so we can move right along.
Adon Olam Asher Malach V'Teren Kol Yitzir Milra V'Yet Nasa V'Chetzo Kol Asay Melech Shemo Nikra Asay Melech Shemo Nikra V'Yacharei Yikol Ha'akol V'Vado Yikol Torah V'Hu Haya V'Hu Ove V'Hu Yiyeh V'Tifara V'Hu מלאכוסי ביום בקרב בידו, הכי ברוכי ויהיה אישה ויעילה, ואם ברוכי גבייתי, אדוני ולא ירא, אדוני ולא ירא.
Please rise for Kiddush, and of course, as always, a thank you to Marilyn for doing a beautiful job of getting Kiddush poured and ready. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom,
That's like a reflex, right?
And they do a lot of terrible things, and maybe there's a reason why they do it, but why don't they speak up? We heard from the other side, the people who did it. Why can't someone speak up? To me, if you don't have America, the USA behind you, and they can't give you weapons, that's lives that are lost if they don't have the right weapons to fight the war.
Okay.
They have an answer to some of
Yeah,
these.
we got an amazing boss.
It's happening on this one. You should go online, look up Lieutenant Colonel Nicoloma. He's a radio spokesperson, he's usually English, it's his mother language. Look up what he says about Israel. And suspensions are not in fact they use ammunition very controlled way. And they do aim at legitimate military terror targets, but there is collateral damage. It's not a war aim just like the Hamas. They want to get civilians. We don't want
The point of this is showing that we're using mostly
I don't know the technical side. I'm not in the Air Force. I'm a medic in the infantry, so I don't know the technical side. So, but I know that the war aims are not to kill civilians, and that's why they're using everything they can, whether it's SMSs, leaflets, non-lethal roof-knocking munitions, tell them to go out, phone calls. You're right, so it's just unbelievable. No army does that. No army. America, when they thought there was two of Saddam Hussein's sons in a building in downtown Baghdad, they put a bunker buster on the building, made a 150-foot crater, killed 350 people. They weren't even there, the sons. You didn't hear a peep about it. Or when they bombed the hospital in Afghanistan by accident, you never peep about it.
Yeah.
It's Israel, that's why.
The foreign minister of Saudi Arabia, the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia was being interviewed on PBS like 2 weeks ago, and he's sitting there talking about how atrocious this is, and they can't do this and this and that. I'm sitting turning to my wife, I'm going, they carpet bomb Yemen. So I Googled, wait a second. So I Googled, I said in 2 years, how many civilians died in Yemen for the carpet bombs? 377,000.
They're pretty bad. No one cares. You know why?
377,000. This guy's lecturing us.
Yeah. This doesn't make news. The Iranian war went on for years and nobody cared. People find out about one Jew's involved. And that's how Ukraine's now off the news.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah.
He's barrel bombs and poison gas, and he's back in power, and nobody cares. Now it's coming out as making
You can talk about that all you want, but if you can't answer every charge that they do, what you've been answering all along, you're screwed. Because the public opinion is still going. By the way, you're a medic, you're in the medical unit. I was commander in charge of Vietnam. I had a medical.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
Most of the people in our units are concentrated subjectors. These are real concentrated subjectors.
They do. Everyone.
There's a film about the guy with the Congressional Medal of Honor who didn't take a weapon. He was a famous soldier.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know.
He got a Congressional Medal of Honor, and he would not take a weapon. He saved so many American soldiers on the island that swords against the Japanese. Incredible.
I don't know what you do in Israel if you have conscientious objectors. If you let them fight,
they don't fight. They go to prison.
Well, they just don't carry weapons, but they were good medics.
Yeah, well, I'm a medic that carries weapons.
Shabbos.
They're so wonderful. Aren't they wonderful?
What do you want to do with it?
I love
אבל צחיק, כי קיבלתי מכנסיים ממנו, ושבועיים אחר כך קיבלתי חולצה ממך.
שבועיים התהלכת בלי חולצה?
שבועיים הלכתי עם חולצה רגיל, אבל החולצה של הצבא זה מתשך, כאילו, אתה מזיע, זה כבד, כאילו לא שיפרו את החומר, רק היחידות המובחרות שנכנסים לעזה, יש שם את החולצות טקטיות. אנשים כמונו, ומה הדבר הכי נורא? כאילו שאתה מטפל בפצועים, צריך המון דם, ודם על מדים זה נשאר. על המכנסיים טקטיים, רק צריך לשטוף את זה מים קרים, זה מדהים.
צריכים להחליף להם.
מאוד מאוד צריכים, אבל חרדים לקחו את כל התקציב. זה באמת הבעיה. מאות מיליוני ש"ח הלך לחרדים, שלא יתגרסו, של ישיבות שלהם, ישבו אותם בממשלה, ושפתח את כל המחסנים, את כל